All right, welcome back to the garage. Today we're going to be taking a look at this rear deck filler panel here and doing a little bit of Camaro archaeology. I'm always amazed at how these cars are put together. And as you look at it, you can kind of figure out what goes first and what comes last. And I believe that the trunk lid hinges go on the very last because the rear deck filler panel is attached to the package tray. This package tray starts here and it ends all the way back here with this gutter, and the rear deck filler panel sets on top of that here and then welds to it here. Now then on the sides, whenever they redid the quarters, they welded it here, but it should actually be pinch welded in here. If you look down here where the holes are, right there, that's the flange where that gets pinch welded. Now, you've got pretty decent access here, but it goes in behind the trunk lid hinge. And if you take a look down here, you can see there's that flange there. And so it must have got welded up, and then they put the trunk lid hinges in because they only pinch weld here and they weld to there. So that's how that works. Now, my rear deck filler panel is pretty ugly right here in this corner. Like, it would need some rebuilding, as well as there's some pretty heavy pitting along this window channel, this back window channel, as well as there are some holes rusted in it. Now, I'm not sure if these are drain holes that just rusted out or whatnot, but I've got a replacement for that, and it's right here. It's this AMD piece. It looks to be a really nice piece. It's nice, thick, heavy gauge metal. I've got to try and figure out a way to fit that in there. And I don't really want to have to take out the trunk lid hinges to get that welded into place. So I'm going to scratch my head about this a little bit, and I'll come back. Okay, after a short deliberation, I came to the realization that I'm an idiot. I'm sure most of you already knew that, but whenever I had the floor out of this thing and I didn't have wheel wells and I didn't have any of this stuff in here, I could have very easily replaced this panel, removed the deck lid hinges, welded into place, and been much farther ahead of the game than I am now. However, I think I've got a plan, and if I take my MIG gun and I stand on these little chunks of wood right here, I can get right up into here and weld it from this side. So I should be able to do plug welds similar to factory with without removing the deck lid hinges. So let's without further ado, let's get to cutting this thing out of here. All right, the plasma cutter made short work of cutting that off there. Now I've still got to remove the pinch weld area here, as well as back here around the rain gutter. Plasma cutter can be a little bit dangerous. I gouged up the package tray there and there. I'll have to come back and fix that. I'm glad I'm removing this. It's got a fair amount of surface rust on it that could use a little cleanup here. The pieces that came out of there, and yeah, they're kind of surface rusty. Not terrible, but just, you know, it's a 50-year-old car. The quarter panel extends over here. There's a little overlap, and I cut a little bit of that off there, as well as on this side. So I'll have some repair to do in here, but let's get the rest of this all cut out of here. Okay, I got all those spot welds cut off, and got the excess metal pulled off of there, back in here and over here. Now I'm going over them with a let's see here, with a sanding disc and cleaning them up, as well as cleaning up my previous indiscretions, getting that ready to be repaired. I used a carbide burr to cut those spot welds. It works awesome. Really happy with it. Makes a big old pile of man glitter. I've still got a bunch of cleanup work to do on this flange area and the overlap, but I've got to rebuild some of that and stuff like that. I'm going to rotate the car over a little bit so I'm not standing on my head to do this, but as you can see, up in there, got to deal with that. Making her look good. So let's keep on keeping on. Okay, I didn't end up having to turn this thing over to clean up the flanges in here. Got that all cleaned up real good. Here's that overlap area, and what happens is the quarter panel comes down and then it dips down a little bit, and there's an overlap there where the rear deck filler panel comes over the top of that, and there's a lap weld there. That's kind of ugly. I ground out as much of the old weld and old metal as I could. It's going to need a little bit of love. Same thing down here on this side. Got this nice and clean, good to go. Ground this up as much as I could. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of reflecty. Turn the light a little bit. Anyway, did that. Now I'm going to hit this thing with a wire wheel and get some of this rust out of here and move on to the next step. All right, after a little quality time with the wire wheel and the clean and strip disc, I got all the majority of the rust off this anyway. Now let's try test fitting the new panel and see how she goes. All right, we've got her test fit up in here. I had to hammer and dolly the flange here just a little bit to get it to set in there. As well, I think I'll need to trim the very back of this panel a little bit. It's making contact with the trunk gutter there, and that's preventing it from sliding down, sliding back and into place there a little bit. It's a little proud here, but I can clamp this shut and it pulls it. Let's see if I can do this with my hand. It'll pull it in kind of tight there, so there's a little bit of a ridge. Not too terrible. Kind of same story down on this end here. It's a little proud here, and I think the very back of it needs to be trimmed right here, so it'll slide down in there and fit up real nice. I've got a little gap in there, but so far so good. Gonna take it off here, play with it a little bit, and throw it back on here probably another 20 times or so, and get her fitting up nice. Let's do that. Okay, I've just about got the rear deck filler panel fitting in there about the way that I want it, ish. I want to go ahead and fix up these flanges that I cut off. Like this is, here's the one that I hit with the plasma cutter and made a mess of it. This one up here I've already cut off, and I found a little piece in the scrap pile that'll go just about right in there. I can tack weld it into place, bend it around, then cut it off. But I wanted to show you guys kind of what I was dealing with. The trunk gutter here is a piece of trim that extends from here all around the trunk opening, and over here attaches to the tail panel. Typically this is spot welded to the quarter panel all along here. Now whenever they replaced the quarters, they had to cut that off. I'll see if I can show you. There's where the spot welds were that they cut off there, if you can see the holes. And then whenever they put it back on, put the new quarters on, and went to weld it to that, I guess they didn't want to weld upside down in the trunk, so they just came up in here and just put some little spot welds in there. Now, I've been scratching my head and humming and hawing about this, about whether I want to try and fix this and make it right. And I don't, because trying to cut these welds out of here, I'm either going to screw up the quarter panel or I'm going to screw up the trunk gutter channel, and I don't want to do that, and it gets covered with seam sealer and a seal, so I'm not even going to worry about that. But I just wanted to show you kind of what I've got here, as well as they cut the spot welds. This is a trunk hinge piece here. They cut the spot welds where it was welded to that trunk gutter, so I'm going to be re-welding that. Let me get these little flanges here fixed up, and then I can do some more test fitting with that panel and get it closer to being done. Okay, I got those flanges repaired. Got that little guy there, as well as down here. This little guy, let's throw that panel back on here and see how it fits. All right, here's that rear deck filler panel clamped into place here. It's looking okay. This corner here is a little bit low. If you take a look at that, what I like to do is take a piece of straight edge and slide it along there and see. It'd be nice if it's hitting both pieces at about the same time, but the corner's a little low there and it gets a little higher kind of as we go along through here, so it kind of needs a bit of adjustment. I just wonder if I put it in the shrinker stretcher and I stretch that curve a little bit more, if that'll make it lay down in there a little bit better. As well as this area right here is kind of sticking up a bit. I'm going to need to split this and get it to push down and set flat on that flange there. How's the other side fitting? Let's take a look. Kind of the same story. It's fitting together pretty good there. I may need to rotate this thing over so I can actually get to it, but same story right there. This corner here is looking pretty good, but yeah, I keep playing with it. Here's a little different angle on this. Turn it over so that I see this edge here. It's looking real good. It lines up real nice there. I went ahead and split it right here on both sides so I can hammer this edge down a little bit and get it to fit up in there real nice. It's looking good. I did try to put the other side the shrinker stretcher, but I couldn't get it situated in any way that was going to actually do anything positive, so I just kind of left it. But coming along. I'm going to pull it off here and play with it some more. Actually, I'm going to weld up this split that I did on both sides, get that welded up a bit and cleaned up, and try it again. Okay, I welded up the splits on it, pulled it off here, welded it up, ground those down real nice. This one here kind of dives in a little bit, looks kind of ugly, as well as I put a little dent in it right there, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. Other side down here is looking pretty good too. Got that welded up. Now I need to scribe the inside here where this flange is, so that I know where to drill my plug weld holes. So I've got to do that on both sides. Down in here, you can probably see a little bit better. Just right where that meets the quarter panel. But anyway, do that, pull it off here again, and then keep on trucking. Okay, I went ahead and drilled out all my plug weld holes. I'm going to plug weld it from the back side since I can get in here real easy. That should save me some cleanup time, as well as trying to grind welds down in this gutter here. Drilled 4 holes in each side here to weld to, as well as I scuffed up the back side of this. I'll coat all of this with epoxy primer, as well as all of that with epoxy primer. Also cleaned up the package tray area a little bit. It had some kind of coating on it. I assume it was glue or something, I don't know, but cleaned that up a little bit with the wire wheel and drilled a bunch of holes. And now I'm gonna probably fit it one more time and play with it a bit, make sure that it's set in the way that I want it to, and then I can epoxy prime it and then weld it up. Let's do that. All right, I've got this fit up on the car again, and there's a little thing that I don't like, and it's this gap right here. If you take a look, it's weird. Whenever they stamp this, they've got this folded over edge here, and then it's like they cut it back a little bit, and it's the same on both sides, and I don't like that. I know that this gets filled with seam sealer, but it doesn't really get welded up. So what I want to do is pull this off here and weld a little flange in here to fill in this gap, so that it's nice and tight to the quarter panel, and it doesn't have a gap. I'll show you the other side real quick. If I step on a bunch of stuff, yeah, this one right in here, you can see there's the gap. This one's funny because it's kind of angled out a little bit. So I'm going to pull this off here, weld some little pieces of steel in here, and make that nice and tight. Let's do that. Okay, I just took a little piece of 18 gauge, put a little curve into it so that it'll fit right up there like that. I can leave it long and cut off any excess once I've got it welded on there. So I think it's fitting in there pretty good. Let's weld her up. Okay, I got it all welded up and ground down. Now I'm just going to take some tape and make a little line kind of across there and then cut it off. Let's do that. Okay, I've taped it up here where I want to cut along, and I match this outside edge here and then just taper down to the edge here, and then I don't have to fill in any of this stuff here. Just cut that off and I'm done. Okay, here it is, all cut down, trimmed up, looking good. It fits in there nice and tight. I like it a lot. This area is covered by the trunk lid, so you don't really see it a whole lot. You will see this corner here and this edge, but right in here, whenever you open the trunk, you'll see that it doesn't look too terrible. Again, this gets covered with a primer, body filler, and seam sealer, so it should work just fine. Let me know what you think. Rinse and repeat. Let's do the other side. Okay, got the other side done. It's looking real good, real happy with it. Now the moment of truth, let's throw it on there one final time and see if it fits good. Okay, it's on the car. It's fitting real nice. I like that. cleans up that little gap there. I think it's going to work out just fine. Now I can pull this off here. I'll probably spray fast etch on the package tray just to eliminate any rust that might be lingering in there, and then I can coat everything in epoxy primer and then some weld through primer on the welding spots, and then slap it on here and weld it up for good. Let's get to doing that. Okay, cleaned this area up with the Eastwood fast etch, got rid of all the rust, killed all the rust all over here, dealing with some pretty good clean metal. This guy here wiped everything down with the pre-cleaning degreaser, whatever you want to call it. It's in the jug over here. Gonna mix up some epoxy primer and paint it. There's the wax and grease remover that I wiped everything down with, and here's more of that epoxy primer I'm gonna put on there. So mix some of that up and get to going. Okay, I got everything coated in epoxy primer here. Tomorrow I'm gonna let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna come out of here, clean off the rest of the E-coat along these weld surfaces, and then coat them with weld through primer. Got the stuff here. Coat those, as well as I want to take a wire wheel and clean the epoxy off from around these plug weld holes, both sides, as well as spray some of the weld areas in here with that weld through primer along here and along there. And then nothing's going to stop me from welding it in. So I'm going to go drink a beer in the house and let this dry. Oh yeah, I had my exhaust fan on up there. Works really awesome at getting the fumes out of here. Unfortunately, it's a little bit cold out, so I've got to have the fan off and the door closed and the heat on whenever I'm painting. And then now that I'm done here, I can crank up the heat and evacuate the air a little bit so I don't die. And it's looking pretty good. So yeah, gonna get this finished up in no time. Okay, I actually snuck back out here last night and coated the weld surfaces, weld through primer there, and on the car as well as I took a little wire wheel and cleaned the epoxy off from around the weld holes, the plug weld holes, so that I don't have to worry about it burning and messing up the welds. So let's clamp this thing on there for the last time and see if we can't weld her up. All right, got her all clamped up here. She's looking real good. I like the way the seams line up. I like the way it's sitting. I think it's going to be just fine. Same thing down here. Now I'm going to start by throwing some tacks along here on both sides in that window channel, because I think that needs to be welded up, as well as this side channel where it comes over to the quarter panel channel there. Anyway, start there. That'll hold this down in place, and then I can work my way out from there. Weld along here, weld along there, do it all up. Let's get to cracking. Well, I'm glad that I can stand my car on its head so I don't have to stand on my head. I'm getting her welded up here. There you can see the burn through on the welds. Looking pretty good. I've got some cleanup to do in this corner. I've only done this side here. Here's a look on the inside. And I'm glad I'm doing it this way because I don't have to worry about how hemorrhoidy or ugly my welds are. But I'm getting her done. So I'm going to do this, finish up this side, and then I'll switch over and do this back side here, and then I'll finish up with the pinch welds between the quarter panels there. So keep on trucking. So far, so good. Okay, I got this back edge here all welded up. You can see down in here. It's easier to weld whenever you can actually get to what you're welding on and see it and be comfortable. So those turned out pretty good. Real happy with those. Now I'm about ready to go up here and weld up this pinch weld up in here. I got it clamped up. It's looking pretty good. I massaged this area over here just a little bit with a block of wood and a hammer just to make it pretty close, you know. There's not much of a gap there. If I slide this magnet down here, it gets real tight towards this end, and then a little uneven along in here, but just barely, and then tightens up again on this end. So I think that's pretty good. I can go ahead and start welding that up and get this baby finished. All right, I got those 4 plug welds done there. They're looking real good. I'm real happy with it. Now I just need to rotate this car over 180 degrees and do the ones on the other side. Let's get that going. Okay, let's go check those out. It's not easy to get up in and around in here. Kind of a tight fit, especially with welding helmet on. Got those done up. They're looking real good. Now I want to rotate the car over so it's sitting flat and level. And then I want to take a look at the window channel here where that needs to go. So weld that up and grind that down smooth so the window will fit in there nice and flush. Anyway, I'm going to keep trucking. Okay. I welded up these areas and ground them down, got them looking real good there, and over here where that window channel is should be just fine. There is a little bit of a gap there, but I don't really want to weld that all the way up. What do you guys do there? Do you weld that up or just fill it with seam sealer or glue or whatever? Anyway, let me know. I'm going to end this video right here. This thing's on here. It's done. I'm going to move on to another task. Thanks a bunch for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.